The last game of the week takes us to Inter Toronto as they hosted Halifax, and both teams were in really poor form. Inter Toronto winless in their last 9 games, while Halifax Wanderers came into this with one win in their last 6 games. And Inter Toronto started like a house on fire, opening the scoring on just 2 minutes. Almagro with a rasping left-footed shot into the bottom corner, which beat Carducci at his far post. And to be honest, it was a very avoidable goal if the Halifax Wanderers defender clears the ball into touch. However, he just hoofs it up into the air, and Skublak is a really big guy who wins the second ball in and around the box. And the first touch from Almagro literally just set him up for what was coming next. The ball arrowed into the bottom corner, and even though he was surrounded by 3 Halifax Wanderers defenders, he was able to get the shot away. Things for Sardini's men to really think about, basic communication. And it got worse for Sardini's men shortly after as a corner came in on the 10th minute and Telfar headed the ball unexplainably into his own net. And that was a goal and an assist for Almagro in the first 10 minutes. But again, you just have to question the defending in Halifax Wanderers box. 6 or 7 defenders against 5 Inter Toronto defenders in the box defending the corner. And when the ball comes in, there's clearly a lack of communication between Telfar and his colleague, and neither of them go to challenge the ball. And the ball just pings off Telfar's head, and which, by the way, was a very good finish, just in the wrong net. And Carducci was picking the ball out of his goal for the second time in 10 minutes. But for Inter Toronto, who goals have been hard to come by, it was 2 goals in 10 minutes, and it looks like 3 points was a real possibility at this point for Inter Toronto, even though it was still early on in the game. And again, more damage down the left side as the ball is played down to Almagro, who makes a good diagonal run. And he whips in a first time cross into the box, and Yates finish it with a plumb into the far post. But again, you have to question the defending from Halifax Wanderers. How do they have all those defenders in the box? Only 3 Inter Toronto forwards inside the box, and no Halifax Wanderers defender was there to make contact. It was a great finish from Yates. He stepped onto it very nicely. But Sardinia will be wondering how they had 7 players in their defensive box as compared to 4 players from Inter Toronto, and no Halifax Wanderers defender was there to make the block. On top of that, it was very, very lazy tracking back by Caligari, who saw Yates make that dash into the box, but he was unable to put in that extra effort to cut out the cross. And just like that, Inter Toronto were 3 goals to the good. They were in dreamland. But unfortunately, they were able to let Halifax grow into the game a little bit, and Telfar found himself in a position he was unable to find himself all game down the left hand side, and he swung in a very tasty cross, which eventually ended up at the feet of Aria, and he got his shot off with Pavela turning the ball behind for a corner. And subsequently, from the following corner, the Wanderers got a penalty, which Aria stepped up and put away with a plum. But it looked like if Halifax Wanderers could get the ball down the left side more in offensive areas, that could have been their best route back into the game. It was 3-1 at halftime. And just like Halifax had started the first half in complete calamity, so they did in the second half. With poor defending in the corner, Inter Toronto winning the ball back, and a good ball into Altobelli, who uses his strength very well to hold off the defender, and he drives a shot in at the near post, which sneaks in past Carducci, and I'm sure he'll be very disappointed with that one as it wasn't the strongest shot. He should have done better, but Altobelli will not care. It has been a bit of a goal drought for the Inter Toronto forward man, so he will take that goal. And at this point, it was 4-1, and it looked like the 3 points were in the bag for Inter Toronto. But their defense has not been the best. They're bound to let their opponents in with a chance or two, and that's exactly what happened shortly after, with Caligari getting a shot away from distance. And I'd mentioned how HFX Wanderers, the best avenue in forward areas was getting the ball down the left. And this time we see Telfar, who gets the ball on the left. He has time to cut on his right foot and swing in a delicious cross at the back post. And Rampersad was there to deliver a towering and bullet header past Pavela. And just like that, the game was 4-2. And to be honest, up until this point, the Wanderers had been the better team in the second half, but it's just one silly mistake early on which led Inter Toronto in to extend their lead. Isaiah Johnson, who had come on in the second half, and by the way, congrats to Isaiah Johnson and his partner for having their kid, and that's why he couldn't start, but he came on in the second half, and him and Aria showed what was to come, with Aria picking Johnson with a very good switch ball, which Johnson gets on the end of and was able to create space for the shot, but he couldn't trouble Pavela this time. But he wasn't to be kept silent long enough, as Aria was found with a lovely switch ball from right to left. He takes on his defender and he drills a low cross into the back post, which Isaiah Johnson was at the right place at the right time to tap in. And if you notice for both Halifax's goals, the Inter Toronto left back has no idea who's in and around him. He's not checking his shoulder to make the interception. And on both occasions, the Wanderers are able to get the ball in at the back post and someone is there at the right time. This time was Johnson to tuck it in for his seventh goal of the season. And just like that, Inter Toronto fans were feeling the heat. Were they about to blow these 3 points? Unfortunately, it was not the case. They were able to hang on. The Wanderers created one more chance at the end. Johnson could have had a double, but Pavella was a huge save to keep the 3 points in Toronto and bring their 9 game winless streak to an end. And those 3 points take Inter Toronto above Halifax Wanderers into sixth on goal difference. And for Halifax Wanderers, one win in seven, it sees them drop down to seventh. And it's been a really tough time for Sardini's men. But here's what the table looks like at the end of match day 17. Cavalry, the biggest movers, dethroning Fort Jesse in top position. And for Inter Toronto, they will take this positive victory, moving them up to sixth position. And finally, for Atletico Ottawa, who with the win from behind were able to put daylight between themselves in fourth position and their closest challengers to Party Quebec in fifth position.